What I'll show you next is my structure and my way of basically being able to build anything. Because now you know a couple of things that you can build and deliver to a client. But if a client has some specific request and you want to build something that you don't have a tutorial on, that doesn't exist on YouTube, how do you go about that? How do you build anything? I usually break it down into 4 different steps. The first thing, before I even start building anything, we need to create a really, really good build plan. This includes things like the tech stack that we are using, how it will work, what database, what frameworks, what exactly is it that we are building. It also includes things like the design. How should it look? What should the feel of the thing we are building? What should that be like? And that is actually the most important step of building anything. And the reason for that is that there are so many things that goes into this step of figuring out, okay, what are we building and how do we build it? Specifically with the tech stack. Because if you're building something like an app or an automation, the tech stack is what determines what the cost of running it will be and how fast it's going to be as well. And how well does it scale? And if we at one point later on wants to add more things, is that possible? Can we add more features? Can it actually do the things that we want? Can we give it the functionality that we need and want in our app? Automation, or whatever it is that we are building. This build plan, what most beginners do when they're building something is that they just write, I want to build this and this and this, hit enter, and then take it from there. But what happens most of the time is that they end up with a bad tech stack. They don't go back and forth with the large language model in order to actually get the best tech stack possible for what they're trying to do. And they end up launching something that is mediocre, that makes them run into issues later down the line when it comes to scaling, the cost, how fast it is, functionality, etc. So before we start building anything, we want to have the tech stack dialed. We want to keep going back and forth with Claude until we get the best tech stack possible. And then we also want to nail the design so we know exactly what the feel should be of the user experience. Before we even start building anything, it's much harder down the line to change something from bad to good rather than just building it from good in the start. After we have done that, after we have spent a lot of time, and I'm literally talking hours here if you're building something complex, figuring out the tech stack, figuring out the design, and making sure that all of these will be good, now it's time to build out the implementation plan. What people that are a bit more at the intermediate but still beginners, what they do is that they maybe just make one plan of, okay, this is what I want to build, give it to Claude, and then have that build it out. And Claude will actually do this next step itself, which is building out an implementation plan. But you're going to get much better results if you actually verify that you have a good implementation plan. An implementation plan is basically a plan for how do you actually build the thing that you have written out in the build plan. And the way I like to do them is split them up in steps. And for each step, I want a bunch of different checkboxes. So to give you an example, step 1 might be to set up file structure. And in the file structure, there's a bunch of different sub-steps in setting up the file structure. And you want to write all of this out in your implementation plan. And if you're building something very complex, you might have something like 40 steps in your implementation plan in order to build the thing out that you want. And before you even start building anything, you want to make sure that you have this implementation plan dialed. In step 2, the next thing we might want to build out is maybe the database structure and then maybe authentication. Claude knows the best sequence of how to build out anything, but you want to force it to make a good implementation plan. You want to force the AI to really make a decision and make a good decision for how to build out the thing that you want. And then after you've made the build plan and you've made a good implementation plan, that is when you start building. And the way you do that now is that you give the large language model this implementation plan, of course. And then you tell it, please start with step 1. And the large language model is now going to start with this substep, then do this substep, and then do this substep, and come back to you and say, well, step 1 has now been complete. Do you want me to start with step 2? And then it's going to start step 2. It's going to do the sub-steps inside of step 2, and then it's going to finish. This is much better than just giving it an entire plan or just giving it a build plan and letting it control everything itself. By this, you force it to do it in the best sequence possible. And you've planned everything out before you even start building anything. I hope you start to see the power of building out both a build plan and an implementation plan. And actually, when it comes to like the time that you're building, step 1 and 2 will be where you spend 80% of your time. Step 3, when building something out. And actually building it will only take around 20% of the time. A lot of people in the AI space get this wrong and they spend 80% of the time just letting the LLM build and only 20% of the time planning it out, if they even do plan it out at all. So when you've made a build plan, you've made an implementation plan, and the AI has gone through every single step, all the way down to step 40 or however long your implementation plan is, and the AI is now done building it, then it's finished, and you'll have to test and refine it a lot. You'll definitely run into bugs, it almost always happens, and you basically just go through them, paste the bug to Claude, and have it finish everything. That is basically how you go about building something. In all of this, you want Claude to be almost a consultant that can explain to you what is the best tech stack, what should I use for building this, what gives me the best results. And a bonus tip that gives you even better results is if you use 2 large language models. It could either be 2 Claude code sessions, could also be 1 Claude and then 1 codex. But if you have one AI as kind of like the consultant that decides what to use, and then you take that decision and you give it to another AI model and you say, is this true? They're then going to bounce ideas and make sure you get the best result possible. And by doing that, you can start with absolutely no technical ability and you can figure everything out on the fly. Awesome. Let me actually demonstrate exactly how you do this by building something that I have no idea how to build. And I'll show you exactly how you use this 4-step framework right here to do the exact thing that we just talked about. Let's get into it.